So we had to explain to women that, no, these symptoms, they might be common, but they're not normal. You should not be experiencing the irritability, the fatigue, the pain to that extent that it is impacting your quality of life.
And you're unraveling, years of this narrative and taboo. And like, thankfully, I do think we're definitely moving through that taboo. Like, particularly like the Gen Z population are so open, which is so amazing. Like, they will literally talk about anything. You know, my mum's generation, and even for us, it's like, it's this hush hush. And that is what has led women to struggle so much, because there has been no open dialogue on it. But now let's change that, and let's actually communicate, and let's support women in a way that we know is possible and give them the relief that is absolutely available.
So how does it feel to be funded?
I don't think it's actually fully sunk in. Like, this has been a journey that we started about a year ago, and it took a lot of time to get right, and getting the right partner was absolutely non-negotiable for us. So yeah, there was a lot of points throughout the journey, like we were pulling our hair out, and it has taken many different structures over the course of the year. But we're really, really delighted with the structure that we've landed on, and Vestra Partners leading it, supported by EI, and then some incredible angel investors who just have really true belief in us and fully get what we're trying to achieve, to really fundamentally make a difference in the women's health space.
So I'm holding up to the camera here. What is Gigi?
So Gigi creates the most premium nutritional supplements for female hormonal health. And that is just the baseline of everything that we do. So what you're holding up there is our brand new packaging of our product, the PMS and Hormone Balance Blend. This is a product that myself and Jennie developed for over 12 months, as well as taking our years of clinical experience, looking at the research, what nutrients, in what forms and what doses actually support women and give them the relief that they deserve. Because premenstrual syndrome is something that over 70% of women experience every single month. And up until this point, and there's lots of work that other brands are doing and companies are doing to support women, but so many women believe that premenstrual syndrome was just something that they had to live with every single month. And we knew from our clinic experience that just was not the case.
I love the branding.
Thank you.
It matters a lot. I really like even the colouring, the branding, the packaging. I like it. It stands out.
Well, we wanted something that, so we were working with, like as nutritional therapists, we were working with a lot of clinical grade brands, and they looked clinical, and we couldn't understand, well, why had nobody, created a product that, like Lisa said, was leveraging the latest nutritional research in the right dose, in the right form, in one product for women's health. But then secondly, why had nobody done it in a brand that actually resonated with the end customer? Like, why did it have to be clinical? So I suppose we brought that personal, trusted element with myself and Lisa as the formulators, but then also bringing a little bit of joy and something a little bit different to the packaging. It's not your typical pink taxed product. It's blue. It has, you'll see an ocean kind of inspiration coming through. One of the reasons there is because our hero ingredient is a patented ingredient called Aquamin, and it's a seaweed derived mineral extract, and it gives us our calcium, our magnesium, and 72 other trace minerals. And it's ultimately incredibly bioavailable. Your body knows exactly how to use it, and that is what ultimately is driving the efficacy of the product. So we've kind of decided to bring that through the branding and let that kind of speak part of Gigi as a blend. And yeah, it's really well received. We do love her.
So how did this all start? Like obviously it's great when you announce the funding round and everything, but like bring me back to the very origins of Gigi.
So myself and Lisa are registered nutritional therapists, and we've both specialised specifically in female health. So we had come across each other, the Irish nutrition landscape is pretty small. And eventually, we had both specialised in this area, so we were always kind of bonded over it. But eventually we decided to come together, and we actually created a business. We had a business prior to Gigi, and the problem that we were solving with that business was broader than women's health. It was recognising that supplements can be so impactful in the right quality, in the right doses. And so there was particular brands that we would recommend to our clients. So we were taking this idea that everyone needed some degree of supplementation advice. You know, it's not just good enough to be like, oh, why are you taking that? Oh, well, my mom actually takes it and she finds it quite good. But what problem are you solving? Why are you taking it just for, you know, goodness? Like, you know, what's your pain point? And we had seen firsthand the benefit of taking targeted supplements. So the service offering of our first company was this personalized supplement advice. And then after you got that advice, which was from either myself or Lisa, you could then go on, and the cost of that consultation was redeemable against a product, any of the products that we sold online. And we would only sell the very best vitamin D, the very best zinc, the very best men's supplement. But then we were that ended up being the primary research for Gigi, but we didn't know it at the time. So we were collecting all of this data, and we were like, why are we recommending 4 or 5 different products for women who are telling us they have irregular cycles, really bad PMS every single month, which was over 70% of women, which was in line with the macro research. And why hasn't a brand put this together? Because we would buy it and we would recommend the product to them. Because 5 different products, very expensive, a lot of friction, a handful of pills, you're not going to get compliance, and therefore you don't get the results. So therefore people have this thing, supplements don't work. They don't work if you're not taking them for a targeted reason, in the right dose and in the right form. So that was really the light bulb moment. It was like, we have absolutely no experience in product development, but let's give it a try.
But it's so obvious. But this is a perfect example of, you have to be in momentum to see the idea. People are like, oh, we'll do a whiteboard session. Oh, we'll do an accelerator. And you're like, ideas don't come there. Ideas come from hearing this 500 times going, wait, there has to be a better way. That's where the best businesses come from, isn't there? Has to be a better way.
Because we were getting frustrated for our clients that they weren't getting the results that they deserved, because, as Jenny said, it was complicated, it was expensive. We were sending them to this store and to that store, and yes, we were able to bring them to one place with our previous company, but even at that, nobody wants to be taking 5 or 6 different pills every day.
So lazy. We're so lazy. We just are, even with the best intentions. Oh, yeah. Oh, I ran out of this one. That's the common one. I ran out of that one. Oh, I'm just not taking it. It didn't work.
Yeah. And I think every other woman, we also came to it with our own personal experience. Like, I have had debilitating periods since I got my period. So all through my school years, once a month, my mum would be called, can you pick Jenny up? She's either after fainting or, you know, she's broken out in a sweat because she has really bad period pain. Like, Lisa had, you know, her own struggles in terms of figuring out whether or not she had PCOS. So every woman has a challenge. And we're now in a time where, yes, there are huge gaps in the research and women are massively understudied, but we do have really solid nutrition evidence. And let's leverage that to support and ultimately make a hugely massive difference to women's life and their quality of life. And by taking something like your magnesium coupled with your B6, coupled with your zinc, you know, in one blend. And so that ultimately is what then has propelled us forward. The reviews that we saw then coming through in the early days were this catalyst for the rest of the momentum that was built behind Gigi. Women, the most common thing that you'll see in our reviews is that women are just calling this absolutely life-changing. So that is what ultimately why we exist.
And that's as good as it gets, isn't it? If you can do good things by doing good, you know, you can build a good business by doing good things. That's the dream, isn't it? That's a lot of founders' dream.
My headline sponsor in 2026 is Nostra. They have a really unique way of serving Irish companies. Kevin has backed me again in 2026 as he felt we're a fit as Nostra-backed founders and entrepreneurs, just like I do. They take the headache of IT away and deliver all the technology and people. But most of all, they speak to clients in plain English, just like we do on the pod. They deliver from companies from 1,000 all the way down to 20 employees. Nostra's tagline is, take control of your IT, which means they give companies a view of what they have, how it all works, so leaders in the company understand IT. This episode of The Entrepreneur Experiment is brought to you by Azure Communications. If you're building a brand, how it shows up in the real world matters, just like you see on the pod. And that's where Azure Communications come in. Azure specializes in high quality print and packaging solutions that help businesses look professional, credible, and ready to scale. From packaging and point of sale materials to branded print that actually reflects the quality of your product, Azure works closely with businesses of all sizes to get the details right. Whether you're launching something new or upgrading how your brand appears, Azure Communications helps you make a strong impression where it counts. Find out more at azurecom.ie. That's azurecom.ie.
So this sounds expensive to do. Like product businesses, I've had so many people on and they're like, broke my heart. I had the founder of Heights on recently, really interesting guy. And he's like, oh, it costs so much to develop. Like what is, when you were like, okay, there's a clear problem here. How did you then go, right, how do we solve this?
Well, I think because we had been working with female clients in our clinics, then we had been recommending these supplements individually. We knew what was going to work. So then the biggest thing for us was, how do we find a manufacturer that we know is going to help us produce the highest quality product, that it's going to mix well. It's going to be like something that you need to take every single day. It has to taste good as well. So we went on a journey to find the perfect manufacturer. We also make sure that they go through rigorous testing. So yeah, that does come with an extra price tag. We also have a lot of patented ingredients, because these ingredients go through an additional layer of research and testing. And that's research that we can then leverage for kind of explaining the benefits and that understanding to the customer.
Did you have any idea how expensive it was going to be to develop a product?
So no, we were going into the unknown. So we started by, I suppose you can kind of, everything wasn't due on day one. So, we could spread some of the costs. We also had one business going. So, we could run some of our, R&D through that. But I have to say the local enterprise office from day one have had our back. We got a feasibility grant. So it's co-funded. So we put our own personal capital, matched that. That got us through, feasibility, R&D, getting the product physically ready. And then when it came down to our first purchase order, we were working with a manufacturer who are absolutely incredible at what they do. And that was, like Lisa mentioned, just so non-negotiable for us. But their MOQ was far in excess of what our bank said.
What does that mean? Someone has no idea what that is.
Their minimum order quantity. And Gary, that's actually a question I had in that meeting. I was like, what is an MOQ?
Here's how I get around it. For anyone at home who doesn't understand, and I'm like, writing it down.
So yeah, and this is like, I suppose, the jargon that we were up against in the meeting one. And, they said, our minimum order quantity is this.
Yeah. And we had to sell them on the dream of Gigi because we were asking them to make a much lower MOQ than they would normally do and prioritize us for like specific production runs. So we had to sell them and they really did. And to this day, we still have the same incredible team at our manufacturer that continue to support us and are on the journey with us.
So then we said, your MOQ is usually 10,000 units. Okay, how would you feel about doing a 10th of that? And I said, I wouldn't feel good about it. And I said, okay, great. So they were like, we'll do it on a once off. And then I said, then also, how would you feel about 3 days credit on that? And they said, you have no payment terms here because you have no track record. I said, okay, tell you what, we'll pay you 50% on dispatch and we'll pay you the other 50% after 30 days. He says, okay, go on. I know where you live.
Don't ask, you don't get. How do you find a manufacturer? I think I was so excited to talk to you today for loads of reasons, but you're still relatively early in the journey and all the memories are fresh. Because sometimes I talk to people and they've forgotten what like that tastes like to be like the first manufacturer. Can't remember, and I'm probably online. So like, how did you go? Because obviously you said you were in really high standards. So how did you go and find out where did you find them and how do you know what good looks like?
We literally got a prospectus online of there's a trade show called FIE, which is Food Innovation Europe. One of these kind of big food trade shows, and they do ingredients and, anything in kind of that kind of space.
The RDS multiplied by 10 is the scale of this expo.
And we were kind of saying, is this worth going? Do you think? Like, I see all of these contract manufacturers say they produce supplements. And so, well, like, how else are we going to find them? They're not going to answer our call. So anyway, a friend of mine has a PhD in nutritional scientist and was working for a nutrition ingredient company. And the tickets to these events are like $2,000 a piece. So that's how they weed out tire kickers. So I said, is there any way that you could get me a ticket to that? She goes, yeah, we're exhibiting. I can get you a ticket. So she got myself and Lisa a ticket, and we jumped on a flight to Paris in December of 22.
Yeah, 22.
And we went right up to our manufacturer and we said, this is what we're trying to do. This is our background. This is our current business. Will you talk to us? And they said, yeah, okay. I don't know who you are. Because they're used to people from companies like your Kellogg's and your My Proteins coming up to them and saying, you know, let's have a chat about this. Here was 2 Irish girls.
They were like, how did they get in here and where's security? Can you just get, you're the queen of the blaggers. Can we get you tickets and also just come for free and just show up?
So that was the first step. And now what I will say is we got a couple of business cards off the back of that trip, and we came back like buzzing. We were so excited about what this company could do. But then they wouldn't answer our calls or our emails for like 6 weeks. Yeah. And it got to the point where I was like, Lisa, what are we going to do here? So I was literally just like finding their phone numbers, and I found one of their phone numbers and was like, will you please reply to my email? Like, we actually are serious. And anyway, it rippled and we built trust and confidence as we went. And now they're, you know, a huge partner. We see them once a month. They're based in London. Like, we have a great relationship. So
you have to be persistent at the point of annoying.
Oh, that's my personality, Gary.
Nailed it.
Glad you said it. Lisa could say it. I couldn't say it.
She would.
But I think, and this is why it's so interesting to do these episodes, because it seems obvious, but it isn't. Oh, you Google it. That's only the first step, right? You have to get in front of people, because with all the best AI in the world, it's still business, is still people to people.
It's
like
all about the relationship piece. And we've had so many, I suppose, bumps in the road with manufacturing and with cash flow. And there's been times where, I've literally had to lift the phone and say, listen, I just need you to have a chat internally. Can you give us, an extra 30 days? I promise it'll be in the account, and you're kind of bide yourself time. And now we can do that because they're like, okay, yeah, cool. We have this track record. We know you, like, you come and see us every, getting in front of those people and building those relationships, worth its weight in gold. Of course you can have
something very interesting there. She comes and sees us.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are like, let's hop on a quick call. Ugh. You don't get to know people hopping on a quick call because it's transactional. It's like, oh, they're my 11 to 11:30. That's why I don't do this pod online, because for me, it's all about the engagement and the network building and getting to know people properly and having proper conversations. Online is so transactional. I think what you said there about getting in front of them, because you make the effort.
Yeah. They really value that as well. And I think, like, anytime that we have gone, which we do so regularly now, but like so much more comes out of those conversations, and like getting them on board and vice versa. They want us to be as kind of tuned into all of their plans as well. So no, it's really invaluable to actually go out and speak to them.
They're behind us, they want us to succeed, and it's a win-win, obviously. Like, they've seen our orders 10x, so it's like, this is it's a partnership. It's not a one-way thing.
A question I love to ask people at this stage, but it's probably a bit skewed for you because probably we've already got the answer. How did you find your first 10 customers?
Social media has been massive for us. And I think we've, like, as nutritional therapists, we've always led with education. So that is something that we're so passionate about. So when we don't do the hard sell, we say, like, hey, like, let me tell you, if you're having irregular periods, it's probably a cause for, your body trying to tell you something. Like, let's look into it. And when we kind of would break down things in a digestible way, because we know how many women are struggling. We know the prevalence of this. So I think social media being used in the right way to build that trust, to build that credibility, and then getting them to try it.
Yeah. And we also, something that we decided early on was like, let's bring them on the journey to creating Gigi. So we were sharing like all the ups and downs. Like we had so many that we were sharing all of these, like when it came to trademarking our name just a couple of days before we actually went to print with our first run of pouches. We were told, actually, you're not able to trademark just a 4-letter word. That's just not going to happen. So you either need to find something to build onto it or change it completely. There was 3 days of panic because we were so committed to Gigi. Everything about the brand was Gigi.
Yeah.
So
Delamere.
yes, Jenny will tell you because she was the...
I read it earlier and I was like, Gigi Delamere. I was like, have I been pronouncing this wrong?
So we are asked, I'd say once a day about the name at this point. And so if we bring it back to that trip to Paris, we came back after going to that trade show. We were on the flight home and we were buzzing. We were like, this is it. We have it. Like we already had the formulation, but now we found our manufacturer. And I said, Lisa, like, we need a bank account. So we need to get a name. We had just put the name of the company off for so long. So I was like, no, we're not getting off this flight until we have a name. And we had the notebook out in front and we knew we wanted something short. Our previous company name was really long and it was wordy and we wanted something short, something feminine. And I was kind of going back and forth. And Lisa, I think at this point I put her headphones in. She was like, Jenny, it's some time. And we were always so clear about what the brand stood for. We never were in any way uncertain about that. So our strap line is next generation female health. So creating something that is better for the next generation, something that we didn't have, that our parents didn't have. And I was sitting there, I was like, the next generation. And Lisa's daughter's name is Georgia. So Gigi for short. Georgia is that next generation. So that's where the name Gigi came from. But then when it's nice.
I really love that.
But then when we had to differentiate it, our IP solicitor was like, you're going to have to change. I was like, I'm not changing it. We have to find a way. And so then 3 a.m, we had the 3 days where we were missing that production slot. So 3 a.m, I'm scrolling, can't sleep until I sort this. And I'm on the Goop, the website. I'm just going through products. I'm just looking for inspiration. And we spoke earlier about the C element and Aquaman. And I saw La Mer, the face cream. I was like, La Mer, like Gigi Delamere. I was like, that's differentiating Gigi. And I'm in an email.
Lisa's like, thank God I put my phone on airplane mode. Wakes up to like 10 different WhatsApps.
I'm like 3 a.m. emailing Mark, our IP lawyer, and I'm like, will this work? He's like, Jenny, that'll work.
Yeah.
So that was the evolution. And we shared all of that on socials. So people felt so bought in. And when we thought, before we came up with that, people were like, okay, what about, all of these different names that were just like, no, because we can't do that. But they were like really getting behind us, trying to solve this problem. So they were bought in. By the time we launched, we were like, we've got here. It's Gigi Delamere.
That's really hard to do as well. Documenting in public, it's kind of become this thing now, but it's actually really, really hard to do because you're, you can kind of look foolish as well. You can kind of feel exposed and things aren't going well and then they are. And you're like, oh, should I have shared that? It's tough.
I'm really conflicted about that. And there's been so many highs and lows, and particularly over the last year, there's so many times where I'm like, I should be sharing this like in the moment before I have it solved. But there's also so many different parties involved. So you're just like, I don't know if I can share this. Like, but you can. And I think that's a confidence piece as well, because you don't want like your stockist to think that you haven't got your stuff together, and you don't want, your customers to think that there's something wrong with the product, or you don't want, your potential investors to think that you're having a wobble. So it's hard, but it is so valuable because there are so many creators and brand founders that do it so well, and I admire them so much.
It's talent.
It's
a talent to be able to do that and to be able to do it in the way we talked about there. It's very difficult.
And I think in those early days, like understanding that people buy from people, we didn't actually have a physical product to show them, but we could show them like our passion, our drive, what we were trying to do, the amount of research and time that we were putting into it. We also spent a lot of time like with the social element, like getting people to sign up. So by the time that we went and launched, we already had this really substantial email list that we could go out to. And that was really invaluable because we had people who were waiting, looking for the product.
So then we launched, and our first order that we had begged, borrowed and sealed to get sells out in 2 weeks and we've no stock.
First world problem, right?
Yeah.
But I'd say you were nervous as hell because, like, what do we do now?
Like, it is such a great problem to have, but at the same time, it is still a problem. And any business owner who has been through it will know, because you've no product, you've no revenue coming in, and you have committed to these expenses. It's less of a, severity at the start, but, we sold out twice in year one and twice last year. And last year was absolutely the most stressful time. So as the business gets older, more mature, more operating expenses, selling out, like, it's a great thing that your product's so highly in demand, but at the same time, you still have to make payroll and you've no revenue coming in. So it becomes a real challenge.
Yeah, it's good until it isn't. It's like that hype thing of like, oh, we're only doing one drop, and when it's gone, it's gone.
Yeah.
You're fine for clothes or whatever. But like when you're saying you got to feed the machine.
And we're on subscription. So what do you say? You
Yeah.
can't have your product this month?
Something that we've told you have to be consistent with.
I just took
Something.
the words out of my mouth. I was like, we're so habit and routine based. I will do
Yeah.
the same thing at the same time every day. Same coffee, same supplements, off to the gym. And if I don't do it, I'm like, oh, forgot. And then it's gone again for a couple of days. I'm like, oh, unless I see it, I'm very, very habit based.
Yeah. And we have women that we're telling, like, you need to be consistent, like, and they are consistent, and then they get these amazing results, like going out of stock and leaving them for a month without the product that is actually changing their life, giving them days of their month back, supporting like their hormonal acne, their confidence is back. Like, it's just not something that we want to.
How do you solve that? How do you get over that issue?
So in fairness, we would have always wrapped our arms around our subscribers. So if we, could see the way the stock levels were going, we ring fence the stock specifically for them, because they're loyal, they're here every single month, that they're looked after. But there is no like silver bullet at the start. It's like really careful. So at the start, it's like you can't buy enough stock because you're cash flow constrained because you've just started. But then it got into a position where we were managing the cash flow. That was great. But then you have like some virality to the product and you can't keep up with the demand, or you launch into retailers and maybe you've over egged, the amount of stock that you thought you had versus, they're doing really well. So it's a constant management. And I think like ultimately we're trying to get to a place where we have more stock on hand. And I suppose that was also one of the considerations behind deciding to raise capital, because product-based businesses are so capital intensive in terms of the amount of stock you have sitting in a warehouse, which is, could be £500,000, it could be £1 million worth of stocks. That's cash that you can't use in cash flow. So there's so many different parts to it. But the main thing is, if you're going into a retailer, particularly Boots, Holland & Barrett, you have to have stock on shelf, or you are getting absolutely penalised for that. So we don't have it fully figured out yet, Gary. So we'll let you know when we do.
But these are the lessons. These are what are interesting, because if people are like, oh, I'd love to build a product. These are the lessons I love us being able to break down for people. When you talked about there, are you fully online? Are you going into these stores? What's the story with your distribution?
So we're an omni-channel model. 70% of our business is still, 60 to 70 at the moment is still direct to consumer via our own website. And then we are in primarily pharmacy, retail and health food shop. So we're in about 450 locations throughout Ireland now. So Boots, Holland & Barrett, Macaulay's, Morris Pharmacy, Nourish. And that has been like a gradual, growth, organic growth within the retailers. And I suppose that model was very thoughtfully chosen in terms of, okay, well, when you take a woman who's struggling with any of the things that our product supports, how are they answering for those challenges currently? If I take myself, I'd be going in trying to get painkillers. So I'm going to a pharmacy. So is there an opportunity there for the pharmacist or the retail staff within the pharmacy to say, hey, like, here's your Nurofen or here's your Ponston. Are you really struggling? Like, is there scope for us to introduce maybe a supplement that could really help alongside the medication? And that has worked really, really well in terms of like that credibility, that trust that omni-channel model gives to the brand. So that's something that we'll kind of continue to build on. And then I think also the direct consumer side of the business is really exciting. Like, we love that. And we love that constant communication, building that community that we're serving, and we're like, they inform absolutely everything that we do. what products next, why we haven't done another product. You know, it's very considered. And that's a real asset, I think, to us, that we kind of wrap our arms around them.
Why have you only done one product to date?
So when we had created like the PMS and hormone balance blend, first of all, we were so proud of it, like to actually be able to get this quality of a supplement. Then we started to see actually how many women that this is helping and the results that women were getting. And I think we were both just so happy for Gigi to be known for this product who was doing so much good. We also were learning so much. So we were getting, I suppose what we thought the blend was going to support women with was primarily PMS, which for some women is more the physical symptoms. So that could be the breast tenderness, the painful periods, the hormonal acne breakouts. For other women, it's more the psychological impact. So really low mood, irritability. So we were learning month on month, like with the feedback that we were getting, what this blend was actually supporting with. And still to this day, like over the last year, and even with my own personal experience going into postpartum, the blend is supporting women in that phase of their life as well. So I think we've continuously taken on the feedback, seeing what the blend has actually been able to do. And now we're at a stage where we are moving into that next phase of a woman's life, and helping them through the preconception, the pregnancy and postpartum phase. So it's a really, really exciting, massive area of passion for myself. But I think that's kind of why we've been so happy to be known as for the PMS blend.
Absolutely. And I think also from a business perspective, there is such huge strength in focus. And that is something that I think a lot of startups don't appreciate, because we had originally planned to launch 2 products, and we got very quickly, brought into reality of the complexity and the cash required to launch one product. So we said, we know that this is needed. We might do the other one at another point in time, but we have been able to hyper focus on this. And for me as a person, like I've learned that is something that I work really well in, focus. And we see other incredible brands that have done that. Like look at Onion, the smooth company, the smooth stick. That is I think that will probably always be their hero product. They have the other incredible products, like my bag is literally full of the detangle brush, the detangle spray, the cloud cream, which are all amazing. But they are known for that. And it's iconic, and they focused and they built the brand on it. And we are, like Lisa said, so happy for Gigi to be known for the PMS and hormone balance blend as our hero. And I think it will always be our hero, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful lesson there, but focus. Startups try to cover all, because you're trying to cover all bases, right? You're like, well, if this doesn't work, at least one of these might hit. But there's a benefit to testing different things, but there's also like such a craft. I talked about it with Sean Mullaney last week. There's a craft to becoming the best, because it's so hard to get known for anything.
Yeah. You're diluting your message. Yeah. Like if you're trying to market 5 products and you're fresh on the market, what your customer's confused. Like,
is this for me?
Yeah.
Is this for someone who trains a lot? Is this for someone who doesn't train at all? Is this like a vitamin? Is this like an essential supplement? Because it's such a confusing space.
it is.
Like I would consider myself very engaged, very tuned into the supplement space. But even sometimes I'm like going, and there's so much noise online. Oh my God.
And that was the premise of our whole first business, was that there is so much noise and there's so much garbage on the market. And we were so tired of like supplements getting such a bad reputation, when we can see from the literature, from the scientific literature, that the right nutrients can have a significant benefit. But all of these studies are being done, for example, on B6. It's on for over 12 weeks, 12 milligrams of B6, but then these products are included in 2 milligrams, and then people are wondering why they're seeing no benefit. Like the dose is what is going to drive the efficacy. So 100%, you need to just hyper focus and just do something and do it really well.
Yeah. And that dose piece is so important to us. And it's the question that we get asked all the time is, why isn't this just in capsules? Yeah. And it's like, well, we have managed to get everything that you need in the doses and the forms in this one blend. If you were to actually put it into capsules, you're looking at 8 capsules, which defeats the whole purpose. So that was something that just we weren't going to bend on, was making sure that we could get everything in here. And if that meant a powdered product, no binders, no fillers. So there's that additional layer of nothing artificial in it as well. But it really helps to kind of stand out as well.
And what kind of revenue numbers have you guys done? Because it seems like you've had a really impressive growth trajectory already. How old is the business, first of all?
2.5 years.
Okay. And then revenue wise, where are we at?
So we'll do over 3 million this year. And we've just landed our funding, yesterday. So that was, we got up to 2.5 million ARR self-funded profitably. So that is something that, building a sustainable business is also really important to us. It's not about growth at all costs. And our ethos won't change just because we're funded. Like, we will remain capital efficient and in line with the lean methodologies that we have practiced to date. And I think that's what builds long-term business and long-term growth and facilitates you move into new markets, new subcategories in a really, polished way.
There is not many businesses that get to 2.5 million ARR with no funding.
Yeah, we're proud of her. We're very proud.
I thought you said we're brilliant.
Lisa, the most modest person in this room.
No, we're extremely proud.
I can say it. It's absolutely class. It's unreal. Like, I hear a lot of startups and I hear a lot of stories, but like, obviously I've known you, Jenny, for a little bit, so I kind of had a sneak peek of what was coming. But like, that's huge, especially in a physical product. It's very different. It's a little different if it's tech. Do you know what I mean? That's kind of infinitely scalable. Mm-hmm. That's not infinitely scalable, as in exactly the reasons you said. We ran out of stock. There's shipping, there's logistics, there's physically getting it to people's homes. There's a lot to 2.5 million AR. There's a bloody lot of work that goes into it.
I think as well, like, Lisa and I bring very complementary skill sets as a founding team. So like, my background is in management consulting and business. I have a financial and strategic background. Lisa is on the product side, knows the granularity behind the research, has worked for some of the largest supplement brands in the world. So we're bringing two very different skill sets together, and they complement each other massively. So we've divided and conquered, and it has brought together all of the elements of a really rich, the essence for, an internationally recognizable brand.
That begs the question though, why raise money at all?
That's the question that we got an awful lot, Gary. So we didn't make the decision lightly. So what I will say is we have had really grand ambitions for Gigi from day dot. And back to our earlier conversation around the challenges around getting a product to market and the costs associated with that. Neither of us are from money. It was all self-funded. So we were kind of saying, okay, well, we might need to just raise a bit of capital here to be able to hit the market and get the brand out there and, get us into retail and do everything that's required there, because marketing for consumer brands is really expensive, even aside from, the inventory side of things. But then, things just move at a pace, and next thing of all, we're launched and we haven't actually done any of the applications. Your pre-seed star fund was what we were planning on doing with Enterprise Ireland. And then lo and behold, we're on the market and we've exceeded all of the revenue thresholds that you have to stay under to be able to be eligible for that. So I said, okay, right, let's actually just kick this funding thing down the road and see if we actually need to do it, or, we'll look at it at a different point in time. And then thankfully we were able to sustain that by just reinvesting absolutely everything into the business, keeping operating expenses really low, keeping salaries super low. We didn't hire anyone for a very long time, no fancy offices. And then it got to the point where we had so much opportunity coming to us, and the requirement in terms of like the inventory piece and how much that, costs to hold was eating up into our working capital. So it was really stunting our growth. So I suppose in essence, it really is a question of, well, how fast do you want to grow? And, when we start, then that's only one product. We have ambitions to grow the portfolio. So we multiply that by 2, by 3, by 4, and you're looking at a huge capital requirement. And then I suppose the second piece of that is the UK is a really big focus for us, and it always has been. We said we would do the learnings, get a lot of the testing in Ireland, and we did that in bucket loads in a much faster trajectory than we had ever planned. So the UK market is massive, Ireland, the size of Birmingham. So the capital required to activate and build a brand in that market is huge. So when you couple the inventory side of it and the marketing side of it, we could absolutely do it. We could do it organically, we could do it sustainably, but it would be really slow. And you're competing with very large brands with very large budgets. So it was a really conscious decision. And I suppose when we did decide to raise, we said, okay, if we're taking on capital, it has to be the right capital. If we are taking on institutional capital, it has to be a partner that can add value. And I suppose that's why this journey took a year, because we had a lot of, I suppose, opportunities and offers, but they were not the right fit. And my gut was screaming at me. There was term sheets on the table and we just said no, it's not the right fit.
So what kind of turned you off? Because this is really a question I love exploring with people, because, only take the right money. But what does that mean?
So a partner who is an actual partner. It's not just somebody breathing down your neck being like, have you hit that revenue goal? It's a partner that is completely aligned with the mission that you're trying to achieve. It's a partner that can actually add value by not only the capital is one part, but add value in terms of their black book. Who can they introduce you to? What experience have they got? What do they bring to the table? That is worth its weight in gold. And we have found that with Vestra. They have a huge amount of experience in consumer brands. They have a huge amount of experience in the UK market. And that is what we're really fundamentally focused. And
so you'd be almost interviewing them as well.
Absolutely.
Right?
It's a partnership. It's like you often hear it described as a marriage. I actually think it's even more than a marriage, because you have this third entity that you're also responsible for, the company. So the company just doesn't go if you guys split up. Something has to happen. So it is a very consciously, you're interviewing them, they're interviewing you, and due diligence is rigorous, but that is your opportunity to find out exactly who it is that is going to be on your cap table and who is going to be on your board, especially when you're taking institutional capital. They're going to want a board seat. So it's something that I'm so glad that we didn't rush into. I'm so glad that we didn't go against our gut. And then thankfully we've also had, a fantastic support from Enterprise Ireland and our angel investors who just, again, are fully behind us. But they can see the value that the VC is going to bring. So it's a rigorous process, and I'm ready to just let the nervous system return to baseline.
I can feel the energy. Talk to me then though, what do you wish you knew now back then? Because I normally don't ask that question because it can be a bit cliche and twee, but I think when something is so fresh and something, there's lessons right here to be pulled out right now. So if you were talking to Jennie and Lisa from 12, 15 months ago going, you're going to raise, it's going to take X amount of time, and here's a couple of things you're going to wish you knew.
I suppose I'm speaking for me personally, and I mentioned it to you earlier on when you mentioned Sean Mullaney from C Point. He said at a conference that I was at only 2 weeks ago, and this was the advice that I wish somebody had told me a year ago, is that raising capital is actually nothing to do with you or your business. It's a systematic algorithm, and no just means you move on to the next. I found this whole journey really challenging, both personally and professionally, because my worth as a founder was tied up in the company. And if I had have separated the two of them, I think I would have found the whole process much easier and wouldn't have taken things so personally. But I really felt for a long time when we were getting no after no after no that this is a personal thing. And I mean, we could go down a bit of a rabbit hole here. There's 2% of VC funding goes to female founded businesses. And I do wholeheartedly believe that there are certain rooms, if I had pitched in and I was a man with the numbers that we have, would have been funded in minutes.
This is one of the questions I wanted to ask you. Do you think you're at an inherent disadvantage? Do you think there is, call it what it is, sexism within the venture investment space?
It's the first time in my career that I've felt that gender disparity. And I've been in a corporate role, worked with PwC. I have nothing but positive things to say. I've never felt that gender disparity. but it's so apparent in finance. Who we were pitching to were predominantly men who had the cash. They were all male. And I have absolutely like no problem with like holding our own and presenting it as facts and figures, but it's the biased questions that you get that there's no way that a man would got some of the questions that we got. And I was mistakenly sent notes from a fund post a meeting, and they'd shock you. And
You gotta tell
I
us.
can't.
You
I can't.
got.
I would never do.
gotta.
I would never do that. But
Let's broadly speak.
You're here for the gossip.
yeah, Gary wants the tea.
I need that clip. I need that Instagram clip. No, but I asked this. It's funny, but it's really not funny. I asked this because I've spoken to so many great female founders, and I've heard the same thing. If there was, I talked to co-founders, male and female, and they would look at him. She would be speaking, and they'd be looking at him, and they'd ask a question to him.
So if I had a male co-founder, statistically, our chances of raising capital would have increased by 80%.
Lisa, we've bad news.
Stuck with me. I'm not going anywhere.
I wouldn't change it for the world.
What kind of questions, what sort of pointed questions did you get during the process? Because I really do feel a responsibility to kind of like show people what it's like at the coalface, because we're talking about 2026. This is not like, 1996, it was very sexist.
Yeah.
You know, this is 2026. This is 2025. You're going through it. This is still a real problem. So what kind of questions did you face?
There's two themes that come up quite a lot. So the first one is, instead of looking at it as an opportunity, they're asking you how you're going to de-risk it. They're not asking you about quantifying the upside. They're asking you how you're going to deleverage and how you're going to de-risk this opportunity for them. The inverse of the question happens for men. Oh, tell us about how big this opportunity is. Oh, wow, that's an incredible opportunity. But for us, it's, okay, you see a lot of growth here. Okay, you're profitable. Okay. But, it's a bit risky. Like, there's a lot of supplement brands, how are you? And that's a valid point, but it's always through that de-risking lens. And then the second one is, how are you going to manage this? I.e., you're going to have kids. How are you going to manage when you're a mother? Lisa has 2 children. You're young. You're getting married. All right.
So they would dance around it, looking down at the finger to see what the story is. That's wild.
It is wild. And I came out of 2 of those in particular. And I have always tried to not see that. There's been times in my career, there's things that have happened and you're like, oh, that's a bit of gender bias there. But, you kind of just blow it off. I look at it as, well, I'm actually going to prove you wrong. I'm going to use that as ammunition. I'm going to prove you wrong. But I said, okay, well, maybe I am kind of like heightened awareness of this. Maybe I'm taking this bit, maybe it's not that. But then when I got those notes, I was like, I was right. It wasn't just something I was imagining in my head. This is really apparent. And the finance sector is so male dominated, and it's one of the only sectors that has not changed in terms of like that gender balance at senior leadership level. And a really good example of this, and now this isn't actually in the context of any of the pitches that we did from a VC perspective, but we did 2 pitches on the same day about 1.5 years ago. And the first pitch was to a panel, was in the morning. It was to a panel of 3 women and 1 man. And we walked in. We hadn't even got the first sentence out. And one of the women sat back and was like, oh my goodness, I wish I had have had you when I was in my 20s. This would have changed my life. And we said, oh, like, this is amazing. They're really going to get this. We're going to continue to tell them, pitch them and tell them all about the USP, tell them all about the route to market. And it was really exciting. We came out of that skipping. And we went into a pitch that afternoon. And it was the opposite split. So it was 3 men and 1 woman. And nothing, for the first, few minutes of the pitch, that's fine. We finished up and one of the men said, yeah, I'm actually not sure though. Is this an actual problem?
No.
Is this,
Yes.
is
In
this
a public room in front of his female judge, is this an actual problem?
is this
What age guy?
is it late 40s?
Yeah.
50s?
Fully grown man.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like, come on.
And I said, sorry, what do you mean is weight your problem? Like the whole hormonal thing, is it really that much of a deal? I said, oh, wow. Like you haven't absorbed any of those statistics that we've shared with you. Like 1 in 5 couples have really struggled to become parents due to infertility. 1 in 5 women have PCOS. 1 in 10 women have endometriosis. 70% of women struggle with premenstrual syndrome every single month. And none of that resonates.
I think to your earlier point, though, it'd be hard not to take that personally. I mean, I know you're saying, oh, I wish it was, it's a systems thing. I think it's impossible as a human to not come out of that room and just feel totally dispirited.
It is hard. And I think that we had a balance, thankfully.
Yeah.
But it did get to a point. So in May of last year, I said, okay, we're not doing institutional capital anymore. That's it. We have unbelievable angels that want to back us. Enterprise Ireland are in. We're going to fill our €1 million round with this. We can do it. So made a call in May. And in September, we were introduced to Vestra. At this point, I was like, oh yeah, that's cool. We're closing the end of the year.
That old chestnut.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, we're oversubscribed.
Jenny was closing. I was
done.
She was done. Yeah,
I was burned.
grafted for the entire year on this. And she had a very clear goal in her head. We get to this time, we get to this amount, and we're closing. And then Vestra came along and they opened up our eyes again to this partnership.
What did Vestra do? I'm not familiar with them. Just give me a quick overview of what they do.
They're a consumer firm investing specifically in consumer brands in the beauty, wellness and personal care space. Perfect alignment.
Right on the money.
Yeah.
You don't have to be, well, here's the hormonal health. You don't
Exactly.
have to you're not painting a picture. You're kind of going, here's how we stack up against the others.
They also just get consumer brands. So in Ireland, we are amazing at funding tech and we're amazing at funding medtech. And we're a hub for that here. And that's amazing. But then my experience was when I then went to have conversations with Irish funds, was that, to your point earlier, well, why are you raising? You're profitable. They can't understand consumer businesses. The capital requirements are distinctly different. We don't have a runway, because we're profitable. Whereas tech companies, they might be profitable in 5 years, 10 years. So they really couldn't grasp it. Therefore, they couldn't grasp the value. We couldn't land a valuation. Nothing then worked if you don't get the fundamentals of the business. Whereas Vestra or any of the consumer firms got consumer brands. They got what it takes to build. They got the how to value them, what the trajectory might look like, what the opportunity might look like, what the risks are. They get it. And you need a partner that gets it. So after a couple of conversations with their general partner, I said, no, okay, they get it. I'm open. Let's do this one last time. But we're closing by the end of the year. And they said, okay, Jenny, the end of the year isn't feasible for us, but we'll meet you and we'll do it in February. I mean, March isn't too bad.
So you've announced today essentially. So from today backwards, what was the first day you started this process?
I honestly think we're nearly a year to the day. I'd have to check my emails when we had that first meeting. But it was March. It was mid to late March. So we're nearly a year to the day. And could we have closed it earlier? Absolutely. Would it have been the wrong fit? Absolutely.
I think that's really interesting because you two are in a really unique position of being profitable, having a product people want. Like a lot of companies, they're going out to pre-seed, seed. They're still on a bit of a wing and a prayer trying to get their MVP into market, whereas you have a really strong offering. So you couldn't have been in a better position, really. So for in theory, it should have been easy.
Yeah, in theory. I think we were also very specific in what we wanted. And I think we did not move from that. And, we're here to build a business that is, you know, really future proof and has longevity, and it's not at the detriment of growth at all costs, and a partner that was going to force us to do that at the detriment of the company wasn't the right fit. Or, you know, yeah, we might sell in a few years, we might not. Who knows? There of course is an exit strategy for investors who want their return, but me and Lisa can't see a version of Gigi that we're not in for the foreseeable. And I said to you earlier on, never say never. I'll never say never to anything. But right now we are so focused and so passionate about building Gigi into the business that we know that it can become, and to help as many women as possible. And to do that, we need funding and we need the right funders.
Well, the startup world is littered with companies that took the wrong money. I've had nearly 500 episodes. I've had more stories than I can count of the wrong money. There's very few stories like you. I've probably 90% of the stories were like, oh, it was an absolute nightmare. We got these people in, it was the wrong money. We had to get them out. Then we got the wrong money in again. And then the third time around, we got the right money because they're under pressure, because they weren't making money. They weren't profitable.
Your back's against the wall for the cash.
So they're like, well, it's this or death. Right.
Yeah.
So I had Andrea from Swoop on a few months ago, and
Loved
she kind
that
of broke
episode.
down. Yeah, she broke down really interestingly, kind of going, this is how it happens. This is how you end up in like death or the wrong people. Neither of them you want, but it's to keep going and keep the dream alive. But it's rarely. So you talk about, and this is why I asked the question earlier. It's kind of a loaded question of like, why just one product? Like, because I can see where this can go. You can kind of look at the packaging. It looks like a big company. And I mean that in a positive way, not like it looks generic. This looks like a really slick, big company. So where would you like to take it?
We have really, really big growth ambitions for Gigi. So we still have so much more growth in Ireland. We know that there is so many more women that, and we actually had an amazing experience at the weekend at the RDS, the Future Beauty, Future Fertility show. And that just really opened our eyes up to, there's so many more women. Like there's so many women that they may have heard about Gigi, but they actually don't know that much about it. There's so much more opportunity for us to spread the word and to support women, not just even with this blend, with our future products. And then, as Jenny touched on, like a really strong focus into the UK as late this year and into next year.
But ultimately, when somebody thinks of Gigi, or somebody has a hormonal health challenge, that the first name on their lips is Gigi. Whether it's PMS, whether it's a woman struggling with really debilitating, painful periods, whether it's postpartum mum really struggling, whether it's somebody on a fertility journey, whether it's somebody in perimenopause, that they think, oh, Gigi can really help you. That is how we want to be viewed. And we're specifically staying within that subcategory of female hormonal health.
But it's so clear as well. Like, when you break down those categories, you're like, they're all, you know, what you call like hair on fire problems. They're all like, you're like, it's, you know, painkiller versus vitamin.
Yeah.
I have to get this figured out because we can't just continue living like this.
Exactly.
So how do you crack the UK?
It's $1 million question, Gary.
You're going to have to back on next year.
Yeah.
Next March.
And we'll have a lot of learnings. But I think, well, one thing that we do know for sure is that it's not a rinse and repeat of Ireland. So what will work in Ireland or in your home market, you're really naive to think that you can just replicate that and go. So there's going to be a lot of testing of various different strategies. But ultimately our strategy really is what we did in essence in Ireland, build up the brand digitally and build the brand awareness, and then reinforce it with retail afterwards. But there's absolutely no point in going in with a big retailer, you know, that has very high expectations in terms of sell-through rate when the brand isn't known. So that brand awareness and the customer and the DTC plays a huge role in driving that demand in retail. And they work really synergistically, and there's a halo effect. So that's how we're looking at it from a macro perspective. I think, you know, if we kind of boil down into the granularity of it, you know, we're on TikTok, we lead with education. TikTok's a great way to, you know, get your message out there. You know, there's pros and cons and you have to be careful. But I think in terms of reach, that's something. And then ultimately feed on the ground. We do a huge amount of in-person. Like Lisa and I are, if you haven't got it already, absolutely love female hormonal health. We love trying to impart some of our value to women in a way that can actually help them. And we love hosting events. So getting women together, whether it's a panel, whether it's a yoga class, whether it's, collaborating with another brand, that physical presence is so valuable. It builds the trust, but then we learn so much from what women tell us at these things and listening. And that filters into every single aspect of our product. The products that have come next, that product's on its 3rd iteration. The formula underwent some big changes last year. It's better than it's ever been. And that was all off customer feedback. So now with that under our belt, I think we're going to use some of the things that have worked and then just be open to taking on and trying things that we're not 100% sure about, but we'll give it a try.
It's a Grace Beverly Tala collab, isn't it? That's
you make that happen.
Purely what
that would make
Grace,
my heart
just
so happy. Grace, if you're listening.
collab. But like stuff like that makes sense, as in like, collabing with brands that are similar and partnered up. I love when I see brands partnered up together going, oh, that's kind of cool. They're kind of remixing together, like a clothing brand with like a drinks brand, or like a venue with a cool music brand or whatever. I love when you see the two brands collab, because you're like, then you're both getting something out of it.
Especially when they align, and maybe it's something that people don't expect, but that still makes sense. It's really cool.
But experiences as well. People are so big on the experiences side of things. You go to an event and you're like, oh, and we've got these cocktails and we've got, they're actually made with Gigi and blah, 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 blah. It's kind of cool.
Yeah.
It's a lovely, good way to learn. But as you say, there has to be multiple touch points, right? If I've learned anything from the podcast, people don't listen. I'll have like repeated a message like 10 times. They'll be like, did you mention something about it? And I was like, yeah, no, I only talked about it 50 times. People, they hear the message when they need to. Suddenly they're having a really difficult month and they're like, oh God, what was that brand? So you need so many, especially now when we're living in the era of
3 seconds if you're lucky.
Lucky. Jeez, like it's wild. So what experiments have worked in terms of the D2C? Because let's break it down for a few people that are listening. If they're like smaller brand owners and they're like, oh yeah, but like I'm probably 2 or 3 steps behind. What experiments worked for you?
Lisa did a really cool one last year.
Yes. So one of the things that we spoke about that is really important to us is our subscribers, because they're the women who are fully committed. They're bought in. They are taking the product. They're getting the amazing benefits. So when we started to look at the churn and the drop off, we were like, why is this happening? We were thinking, maybe they're not enjoying it. Maybe maybe it's actually something to physically do with the blend and the experience. So I literally picked up the phone and I rang over 100 women and I asked them, I said, hi, this is Lisa from Gigi. I just would love to, I really value that you're one of our subscribers, but I've just seen that you recently paused or cancelled your subscription. Why was that? And it was actually so eye-opening what we actually saw. They're still taking Gigi, but maybe they were seeing it in their local nurse, or maybe they were getting a better offer on TikTok. We could actually start to like take all of this information and say, okay, now we're going to put a really strategic plan around how can we make our subscription model the best place for our Gigi girlies? How can we incentivize them to stay with us, whether there is a discount on or promotion, or they can pick it up in their local shop. Obviously we want to support our retailers and we always do that, but when it comes to subscription, and they also valued just me picking up the phone. I was a little bit nervous. I was like, they're going to be like, why are you calling me? But
that'd be my reaction. I'd be like, oh, I can't talk now.
Yeah. And then we had other women who were saying, no, I have to stop it. I'm pregnant. And we were like, that's unbelievable. That's just amazing.
So cool. 100. I love that experiment. I'm going to break that down. So you called 100 people. But like, no, I find people put too much emphasis on like digital and then just look at their Instagram stats. And, oh yeah, there. And you pull out a wild assumption.
You don't get the exactly. We were making these assumptions though. And I said, is that right though? Are we churning 25%?
Yeah.
Where are they all going?
Yeah.
But they were still buying it. But then that makes you go, right, we need to make our product just unbeatable.
Yeah.
Why would you ever cancel?
Yeah. So now we're putting measures in place and incentives, and we're building, like we're undergoing like a website development. Like we want the end-to-end user journey and experience to be the best that it can be.
On the cancel button, it's just you're going to get a call from Lisa.
Yeah.
It's just your face, just looking at them with the phone. Not cancel. It was an accident. That's one way of increasing customer loyalty.
Yeah, but then taking that, okay, if a woman has been taking our blend, they were trying to conceive, they're now pregnant. Okay, what does that mean for our next product?
The customer journey. Yeah, like you said, it all goes full circle from your consultant background going, we're hearing this 100 times, we need to solve it. And now you can kind of go, right, fertility journey, conception,
yeah,
postpartum.
Postpartum. Where are women struggling? Because I was that woman who was taking multiple supplements during preconception, pregnancy. I honestly, after when I just had Isla 10 months ago, I could not wait to start taking Gigi again because I knew I was getting everything in one. Whereas during the other phases, I was back to taking all these different supplements because I knew what the research was saying. I knew what I would recommend to my clients, but I couldn't get it in one product.
I love products when you're like, oh, it's so bloody obvious. Do you know when you're like, why would, it's so obvious. I love products like that. When sometimes I have people are pitching me things, I'm like, I still don't know. It's 10 minutes later and I still don't know. And I was like, I don't think you're solving a problem. I think you've got a cool idea.
I think it sounds obvious now, but like you're asked like what's been an experiment. Launching that product was an experiment. Like we knew that there wasn't anything, but could we communicate that there wasn't anything that was solving the problem? Or could we like convince women that no, this genuinely will support you? So I think like,
and sorry, just to your point, we're talking about premenstrual syndrome, something that women had just been led to believe was just part and parcel of being a woman. Oh, you're going to feel awful for 7 to 10 days before your period arrives. Just get on with it, take a few painkillers, or maybe just go on the pill if it's really that bad. So we had to explain to women that, no, these symptoms, they might be common, but they're not normal. You should not be experiencing the irritability, the fatigue, the pain to that extent that it is impacting your quality of life. So that was just the other part of, yeah.
And you're unraveling, years of this narrative and taboo. And like, thankfully, I do think we're definitely moving through that taboo, like particularly like the Gen Z population are so open, which is so amazing. Like they will literally talk about anything, my mum's generation. And even for us, it's like, oh, and that's your period care bag. Just slip it in your pocket now if you ever need it. And it's this hush hush. And that is what has led women to struggle so much because there has been no open dialogue on it. But now let's change that and let's actually communicate and let's support women in a way that we know is possible and give them the relief that is absolutely available.
It's a brilliant phrase, common but not normal. That's such a great way of looking at it because I've chatted with the girls in the Riley as well.
Amazing.
A very similar problem to yourselves is almost like a taboo. Ooh, hide it away, put it in the toilets, don't make it a common thing.
Under your sleeve when you were in school, you were like
Wild.
passing tampons between your sleeves and it was just like, that's even in with your peers, it was so taboo.
And that's something that the Riley girls are doing so incredible
work.
Is they're taking on a whole narrative that has existed worldwide, particularly in Ireland, Catholic Ireland, for a long, long time. And not only are their products amazing, what they're doing for the women's health landscape is amazing.
And they're pushing and open doors. And this is a problem we need to solve and need to make it so normal. But even still, they're running into problems. Because, there's
decision makers are men.
Things we talk about. How would you change that in the morning if you could? How would you kind of like, you've been through this process, how would you change the kind of capital market structure? Or how would you change accessibility to funding? Because I see some things happening. I'm like, I'm not sure if that's the answer.
I think it ultimately boils down to diversity in leadership because we won't have the diversity of thought and diversity of opinion without more women in leadership positions in financial institutions. And that is such a fully loaded thing to happen because, whether it's, we see that women get to, a managerial level and then, they will have children and then they're not supported in that role. And so it goes back to, spreading that responsibility between men and women. Just because we physically carry the baby doesn't mean that we can't share the load. And I've witnessed Lisa raise 2 young children and also run a company at the pace that we're running it at. And she's doing an incredible job. And she has an incredible support system. Her husband's amazing. Her mother's amazing. Her mother-in-law is amazing. Like everyone around us has been so supportive. But I think when we look at that is the only way. We need to have women in these decision-making roles to have the diversity of opinion and of where that capital is being allocated.
I'm kind of like smiling to myself here because as you're describing that, I always I roll my eyes when you're like scanning through like a release or something, and it might be a funding release, and there's 4 generally white men, arms folded. If they've been really risky, they've taken off the suit jacket and they've got the white shirt, but they're all wearing white shirts, navy suits, and they're like, they've got the founder in the middle, and I'm like,
Pale male and grey.
Pale male stale, right? That's the one I use. It's just like how can you look at that and not going to go, maybe there needs to be fresh thinking? Because when you look at results, and finance should be the most obvious place in the world, going, let's look at some outliers here. Let's look at some female businesses and go, oh, well, hold on. If we only care, and mainly they do, about the bottom line, in fairness, they're in the business to make money, surely they want to back the best people, regardless of gender, location, whatever.
And that's exactly the point, which I can't wrap my head around, because we see in the data, women founded companies perform. And the bottom line, when you have a woman on the leadership team, that company's bottom line is better. Like that is, the data is there. So I also think in terms of, speaking in a language that your audience resonates with. So we will have often tweaked our pitch for the audience. So, okay, well, even if you don't care about the impact that we're having here on women's lives, you do care about the commercial opportunity in front of you. This is a really great commercial opportunity. So let me show you why it's great.
If you just had like D2C brand and had taken out all, it'd be so interesting to do a pitch. If you took out D2C, if you took out like what it was and just put D2C brand, here's our growth. It'd be so interesting to blind pitch.
Exactly, because not only are we, raising as female founders, we're also raising in a category that is underfunded. So it's a double whammy. So we had to really rebuttal, just to your point, well, why was it hard? There was so many things that made it hard. But we're through the other side.
Look, and I always say, I say this in the pod because I really, really believe it. You have to see it to be it. You have to see it to be it. People growing up, like my daughter has to see you two and go, they built that $1 billion brand, now they live in Monaco. They have to though. You have to see, because I even remember back to like the Irish startup scene back in like 2012, I think I started knocking around it. And like there was very few success stories, regardless, male, female, whatever. There was very few people in Dublin you'd kind of go, oh, what a legend. They built a cool company and this older, they built a cool company, they're building that. Whereas now you can kind of point and go, deadly. You have the likes of Choupy, you have the likes of other people like that, you have the likes of Anya. They can go, these are role models. Yeah. These are like, I do my daughter's hair with the
smooth stick,
with the smooth stick and with the smooth brush.
Yeah.
And I said, Daddy's friend Anya makes this product. Do you know what I mean? Because that's what I want to instill in her. Going, this is Daddy's friend Anya makes this product. Yeah. How cool is that? She makes this. Look, she actually dreamt this up and made it. Because that makes her think. Then going. Yeah. And I always say it to her. Even the other day, she was like, "You took my thing." I was like, "You can do anything." Yeah. Never let anyone say you can't do it.
Why not?
I don't do the boy girl thing. Just you can do anything.
Yeah. And I think also, like, to your point around that support system, the support system in the Irish ecosystem is absolutely incredible. There is no lack of absolutely incredible founders and who were so generous with their time. I met some of Ireland's very best founders. Majority, if not all, throughout this fundraising process were male, and they were incredible allies. And we have, nearly all of our angels are men, and they are big supporters. So like this is not a blanket statement, but this is just a perspective as a female founded business raising capital. But that it's this whole thing that like there are incredible founders that have led the way and have, shown us what good looks like. In saying that, all of them were men. There was nobody that, you know, have raised quite a lot of money that for women who I kind of, so I'm ready to support whoever else I can on this journey and just say, this is a good news story, but this is a good news story for everyone.
And I appreciate you sharing, because I've had a few people come on who've raised money and they're afraid to talk about it. And I kind of got it, but I was also kind of going, I feel it's kind of a bit of a missed opportunity, because if we don't talk about it, nothing changes and we're part of the problem. It just kind of made me feel uneasy. I was just kind of going, I respect that you don't want to talk about it, but I just feel nothing changes if nothing changes.
100%.
If we don't kind of have an open conversation where it's like, oh yeah, in case I need to raise again, I just don't want to talk about it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That is super interesting, because the way I look at it is, I would have loved, there is something still very comforting about being able to lift the phone, be like, hey, I'm Irish, I'm also a woman, or you'll probably know them through somebody else. It would have been great for me to be like, hey, like, how did you find this, or any recommendations? And of course I still did that. Like, there was someone, I met Aidan Corbin multiple times. He was such a voice of clarity for me at points where I really, really needed it. And he was what said, Jenny, you don't need any of that. He was like, park it. You want your million, you have it full, close the round, do it with Angels, do it at EI, and move on. He was like, you can show them that they have missed this opportunity. And I was like, why am I over engineering this? That is such great advice. I don't need the institutional capital. And I think maybe it was like trying to prove something to myself. I don't know. I'm still, I don't think I've fully synthesized or digested all of it yet. I am taking next week off to do that.
We're shipping her away.
I love it, but it's important to market, right?
Yeah.
We talked about the journey is the crack. Like I know these days are bloody hard, but you're also like, if the one thing I've learned from founders who've like made it and sold and gone on the whole journey is that like they missed the buzz of the early days and the crack, and like it's a sickness. I'll talk to them and like, what did it feel like? And they're like, it's all right. And I was like, what do you do next? Going again.
Yeah.
You're like, you're sick. You're a sick individual. You need.
I think you have to be.
You need a holiday and help.
Yeah.
Right. Both in that order. Go on holidays, then get some help, because no, it's true that because the buzz, the purpose. Like you clearly care about the product. Like some people can care if they're selling windscreen wipers or whatever, and that's fine too. But you clearly care about the product, and like and I love what your thing is. I talk to young entrepreneurs in Trinity once a year, and they're in the climate space, so they're super passionate. But to the extreme of not being commercial. Yeah. Whereas I'm like, survive to thrive.
Yeah.
Survive first,
yeah,
and then you can thrive, because the impact you can have if you go bust in 2 years is non-existent.
Yeah.
All you're going to do is put yourself in debt and then be miserable. Whereas if you thrive over 10, 20 years, look at the impact you can have. I mean, look at Patagonia and things like that. You look at big examples, whereas like you being in business has such a ripple effect in positivity in terms of like women's health, but also women in business. Like there's so many ripple effects from just being successful. You don't have to be like solving the major world problems. You can make small impacts as you go, but you have to be in it for the long term.
Again, thanks to our sponsors, Nostra, who take such pride in securing their clients. Kevin talks a lot about immutable backup. It's the difference between recovering from a cyber attack or not. Cybersecurity is made so complicated by so many, and Nostra work to make it easy and flexible so it doesn't stop your business, is affordable and really delivers, because no one wants to get that attack phone call. Now back to the pod.
Completely. And I think that's the whole, I suppose, strategy in terms of building a sustainable business. It's not growth at all costs. And I think as soon as you're being directed in a way that is not aligned, that is where you need to kind of call it. And actually, you spoke of Chupi. Lisa and I were very kindly gifted North Star signets.
Yeah.
And they are to signify that we'll always remember our North Star of Gigi at any point in time, especially now that we've just taken on investment.
Cool. Chupi's one of my favorite people. I've known her for quite a while now. She is just a legend.
It's great.
And talk about purpose and somebody who wants to do good things. Like she, to her core, wants to do good things. It's incredible. But but like that little network growing up around you now, around Ireland, like that's so powerful.
It is.
Because fast forward 10 years, 5 years, whatever, when you've gone on to your next level of success, the impact you'll be able to have then with like a fund or with advice or just by purely existing.
It's
just
all
the
about
impact.
bringing people up along the way. Like there's room for everyone at the top. And I think that thankfully is the mindset that Ireland has. I think collectively, the ecosystem for startups is booming. There are incredible networks for women going for growth, Awaken Hub, like they're incredible. And it's such a camaraderie, and I could literally lift the phone. I remember Boots approached us, we were 5 months old, and we were kind of looking at each other being like, is this a fake email? Like we're 5 months old and Boots is that, can we stock you? How do we even make that work? I have no idea. But I got on the phone to Marissa Carter from Cocoa Brown, and she spoke so transparently. These are all the things you need to be aware of. This is what you need to ask them. And I was like, okay, we can do this.
We can do this.
We can definitely do this. But I felt like I was going in like completely blinded before that. So you need people that are that generous with their wisdom. And why not? Like there's nothing to be gained by having information in silos. So whenever anyone asks me for a coffee, a phone call, student, entrepreneur, and I'm very happy to do that. And I think that's what people have done for me, and we repay the favor.
So we're in March, April now. What's obviously a holiday, some time off. What's kind of the roadmap then? Obviously the UK is big, looming big. Like what's kind of the rest of the year looking like?
We have some really exciting new product launches that we've been working on for, I would say, over a year.
Are you going to do that influencer thing where like, hi guys, can't talk about it, but we got big things coming?
Go on.
So can I tell them about the whole range?
Give me an exclusive. Go on, give me some juice.
Okay. So you can tell my excitement because this has been in the works for so long, but what we've developed is a 3-part pregnancy range. So taking from our experience, I studied fertility nutrition. So it's a huge passion of mine. But what we're bringing out is a really advanced form of a prenatal. So it's going to support women from preconception, pregnancy, through to postpartum and breastfeeding. It's going to be in a capsule form, but then we're also bringing out a advanced powdered form. So this is going to have really, really lovely levels of antioxidants. It's going to have higher levels of our nutrients. It's actually going to be, there's nothing on the market like this product, and we're so incredibly proud of it. And then a really nice gentle iron. And I can go into the science of why we've decided to do that. Mainly, we have separated out the iron because iron starts to compete for the absorption of calcium and zinc. These are nutrients that are so important for both baby's development and mum's preservation of her teeth and her bones during pregnancy. So we were like, why would we put iron in a supplement that's going to actually do the opposite of what we're trying to do? So this 3-part product or pregnancy range is going to be, it's so needed. There's the products that are on the market at the moment, they really haven't changed in, I would say, 15, 20 years. And then some. Whether they haven't changed the form of the nutrients, they haven't changed the dosages that Jenny mentioned. Like, we know that some of the dosages that are in products, they're just to prevent deficiencies. They're not going to move the dial for your health or your baby's health. And we want women to go into these really, one of the most important stages of their lives, fully nourished, getting the best quality supplements for both them and their baby, that they have reassurance and that they trust the products that they're taking. And that's what we're doing now with this range. So we're so excited.
I love that. That's amazing, because we went on our own fertility journey before we had Willow. Honest to God, some of the stuff we did, like we literally...
And you will, because you want to do the best.
We literally sat down together and we were like, we will do anything. And we made this pact, we will not stop until we get there. And like, we tried traditional medicine, untraditional medicine. We had a Zoom call. I had to put out my tongue. She was like, oh my God, did you hear that? And I was like, I was already a bit Scooby-Doobious, but I was like, I'll try anything. And I was like, no. She goes, my kettle clicked. Oh, that's a sign of amazing things in you. And I was like, oh, maybe I'm kind of getting into this after all. And my wife was looking at me afterwards. I was like, well, I thought she was great. But it was just absolute madness. But we were just so desperate. And we went down to her house and had to buy these herbs off her in the middle of COVID, broke lockdown rules, all that kind of jazz. Drove down to Wexford, brought the herbs, had to put it in a pot. Honest to God, it was like black magic. And like, you had to steep it. Every Sunday we used to have to steep it. And you'd be like, ugh,
Oh my goodness.
it was
Well, I can assure you that this is
horrific.
nothing like that.
but this is 2022. So I'm not talking about the dark ages
Yeah.
here. Like, this is still, we were searching.
Yeah.
We were like online all the time going, what can we get? What can we get?
Yeah.
What else can we do? So like, this product is just so needed, and just clear transparency where you're like going, this is what you need. Because so again, you're looking online, you're like, there's 10 different, do this, definitely don't do that. Oh, definitely do this. And you're like, where's the truth? So like, this is hugely needed.
And I think as well, like some of the products that are currently on the market, they don't speak to our customer. She's really educated. She knows what she should be taking because she's done the research. She has a nutritional therapist, or she's educating herself constantly. And couples are that they're not going to take par or subpar products. They're going to go that extra mile, and that's what we want to do. So we're really, really excited. And if ever there was a time to support women and allow them to feel the best that they possibly can, it's during this phase.
Before I finish up, I tried to like pay it forward a wee bit. Like, is there anyone you've met on the journey? So if I give you €1 million now, who would you invest that million in that you've met along the journey so far?
At the weekend, and it's a brand that I've been following now for a while because it solves a problem that I had when I was pregnant. It's a founder called Sarah Stokes, and she has a company called Skin to Skin, which is a amazing high quality skincare line, actually formulated by Katrina Ryan. So you can imagine the quality of the product. But it's specifically designed for women who are preconception, pregnancy, postpartum, breastfeeding, because I love spending money on my skincare. But when I was pregnant, I was constantly looking up different ingredients, scanning the back. Is this safe for me to take? Is this not? Whereas she's actually brought a really incredible selection of skincare products to the market that is solving that problem. No longer will I need to spend hours or be doubting myself or put skincare, like not do anything. At least I know I'm going to be able to do that part of my ritual that makes me feel really good, but know that I'm safe doing it. So I would absolutely.
Sarah Stokes, Skin to Skin.
Yes.
Brilliant. Shout out,
Irish
Sarah.
founder. Yes.
If we're, we're obviously really passionate about changing the women's health landscape, and what Dr. Deirdre O'Neill is doing with fertility is unbelievable. She is challenging every norm within the medical system in how women are getting or not getting diagnosis for hormonal health challenges. So, they have taken on lots of funding already, but I think what they're going to do and the impact that they're going to have on women's health is going to be absolutely exceptional.
Finally, what's been the best bit of advice you've gotten over this journey or you've given to someone else?
I think it's that not raising capital personally. I think that would have kind of really separated it out for me and made the journey a little bit less stressful. And just that it is just looking at it as this is business, it's commercial, that it is not a reflection of you. I think as founders, you obviously are so passionate about the business and you see yourself and the business as one. And to a certain extent, that's amazing. But there are scenarios that, maybe if it's raising capital or maybe it's getting a no, it's not to do with you personally. There is a whole host of other reasons that is driving that decision. But that would probably be mine. Just try not to take things as personally as they seem.
I think my one is around don't be scared to fail, because through all of those failures or mistakes, so much growth happens. And I know personally myself, in my previous career, I probably would have put myself in a little bit of a safe bubble and said, this is what I like to do. This is really comfortable for me. But it was actually only meeting Jennie, starting our previous company, Gigi, not being afraid to make mistakes, learning from them, that has allowed me to grow in my confidence. And with a startup, you're constantly learning and constantly having to test new things and just quickly move. If something's not working, that's no fault on us. It's not working. Let's move and pivot. So yeah, don't be afraid to fail.
Like, having a startup is personal and professional development on steroids. I'm confident there is nothing comparable to it. And it is the most enjoyable journey at the same time. But I think you have to have the self-awareness to know when you're not the right fit for a particular role, if there's somebody who can do it better. And it's not about ego, but being open to taking on feedback is something that is going to serve you really, really well.
That was incredible. Where can people subscribe?
They can subscribe at gigisupplements.com, and we're available on all your major pharmacies and health food stores nationwide.
And then on socials?
At Gigi Supplements.
On Instagram and TikTok.
Jennie, Lisa, thank you so much. That was incredible.
Thank you for having us.